Welcome to DejaVue.
It's your favorite Vue podcast. You just don't know it yet. Or maybe you do. I mean, we're almost like on the road to our 50th episode here. And well,
almost a year of episodes.
That will be crazy. Yes.
Yeah.
Even with all the specials, I mean, the podcast is almost turning 1 year old. Maybe there will be
we might have to do a special 1 year anniversary thing.
Reading my mind there, Michael. I love that. And if someone just like joined for that episode, be like, hey, who are these guys speaking? Well, first of all, my lovely co-host Michael Thiessen is here. He's a full-time creator around the Vue and Nuxt ecosystem, has a lot of amazing courses, working on mastering Nuxt version 4 right now as we speak. Of course, not during the recording, I hope. And besides
not
that,
quite.
good. And of course, besides that, a lot of great blog posts, also some YouTube videos, some streams here and there. So yeah, also you can find him all the social medias. And he has an amazing newsletter as well with weekly tips.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and we just did an episode on myself where Alex here interviewed me. So if you want to know more about my story and how I got into this and doing all of this, then you can go check that out. We cover some interesting stuff. Of course, it's about me, so of course I think it's interesting. But maybe you think it's interesting too.
It is.
And this week,
learned a lot.
We get to we flip it around, and I get to talk to Alex about how he got to where he is now as part of the Nuxt Core Team, doing stuff on YouTube, consulting, and just being a general all-around awesome guy on the internet.
Thank you so much.
And in person. He's awesome in person too. So
yeah, I'm a total douchebag in person. Like, yeah, whatever. No. No, if you ever
wouldn't that be wild?
I mean, there are probably some people who are like that, but I think especially in the Vue community, I've never met people in the Vue community who are like, no, they're all like super nice guys. And if you meet anyone in the community that you're like recognized, like, hey, I know the nickname, the GitHub picture, whatsoever, then just go there, say hi and chat. We're all like, we don't bite. We're super lovely people. At least all the people I've met in the community and meetups, conferences definitely do that.
For sure. Yeah. People generally seem to be worse online and nicer in person. So yeah,
that's fair, especially with like hot takes and rants and that's true.
So let's talk more about you, Alex. So what are you doing right now? So you obviously you got to do something for work to earn some money. Yes. How are you doing that this day, like today, this week? What kind of things are you doing?
It's tricky. So let's say what pays the bills is consultancy. So basically everything around Vue and Nuxt applications and sometimes things attached to that and bigger projects. Especially companies reach out, say, hey, we have an application. Let's say common cases. We have it in Nuxt 2 or Vue 2. We want to migrate it over to Vue 3. We don't have that much, experience in that because usually you do it like once, or if you have a few projects, you maybe do it a couple of times. But ideally, you want to hit it right the first spot. So they say, hey, can you help us? Because, I've seen a lot of applications and help migrating. So I can help with my knowledge there. Mm-hmm. And same for like generally consultants stuff with, can you help us with performance problems, with architecture, with hitting certain KPIs, or just saying, hey, we want to build a new application with Vue or with Nuxt, and we don't want to mess it up in the first place, especially if we don't have like people that are super trained, that have like year-long experience. So it's a bit of like shepherding and guiding the whole migration or greenfield project towards its right goal.
Are you committing code and like sending over PRs, or are you just like giving advice and lending your expertise more so? And then like how exactly does that work?
Yeah, so it also depends from project to project. Like, so what I usually start with is if I get on board and there's an application already, I usually take some time. We have a little kickoff call. People tell me, hey, this is what the application should do. Here's some caveats. Here maybe some things that are already weird to us. So a little list of things that I can especially take a look at. And then I start reviewing. So it's more like reading the code, trying to understand it. And because, as I said before, I've seen a lot of Vue and Nuxt applications, the structure is usually the same. A lot of packages are similar. Of course, each has their quirks. And sometimes I'm really, really surprised what people do with these frameworks, or what people tell me they do. And then maybe at some point show, like I heard interesting things. For example, what Justin said in our episode with Justin Schrader of like, oh yeah, we ran Python in the backend, like Python tasks. I'm like, that's interesting. I would love to hear more about that. So especially with like bigger enterprise applications, they have all their weird quirks and requests. So yeah, for me, it's reading through that, making notes in terms of, are the typical things that I see that are like problematic or that could cause some issues, but they are fine in this case. There are some common mistakes, which is, for example, also why I like make a lot of content creation besides consultancy. We'll come to that in a bit, I guess. So I usually point like, hey, here is a common mistake. I don't want to repeat myself. So I don't know, read that blog post, watch that video if you want to know more about that. In this case, it's like, hey, in this line, you should do that differently, but that's that one case and maybe there are 10 more. So that's that. Sometimes it's also the request of like, hey, I want to build a certain feature into my application. Can you give me a little proof of concept? Can you give me some kind of blueprint? Or even like, can you actually build that feature, implement it, or can you, review a PR where people did this? But the actual programming task is rather rare because, well, mainly it's also a budget thing and velocity as well. I mean, usually people have developers that program and I'm there to guide things along. So my hours are used to benefit the most for the company and for the project. Yeah. But it's also happening that people say, hey, we're short on that, or okay, our developers could do that. You could review and we have a feedback loop, or get us started, write a little template, boilerplate, POC, and from there we'll take it over.
So in your work, you're seeing lots of different projects and stuff. Have there been any interesting things that you've learned or patterns that you've seen? I don't want to ask you for like bad things that you've seen, so you're like, publicly calling people out, but just like, yeah, because I'm sure that like I don't get to see lots of people write code. I get to see what you put out online, but it's always like smaller examples that people share. That's never like full apps. And that's like true. How do we do like these big things? So are there interesting patterns that things that you've learned, or even just like things that you've noticed? Oh, people tend to do this way and not this other way.
Yeah, so of course, no like shame on anyone. We're all learning, and I really hope that my code examples that I put out are not bad. But the shortness is indeed an issue. That's why I'm also really happy to see a lot of applications out there, and also can dogfood that back to like, hey, maybe we can improve documentation, or there's like a long form content piece that needs to be made about that, because I see that problem in 2 or 3 clients. Pattern wise, I think a lot of people misuse composables. So like, they treat them like, oh, okay, it's just a JavaScript function, which is almost true, but you should call it in a Vue or Nuxt context. So they don't really do that, like calling it in event handlers. So like an on-click handler, like bootstrapping a composable, like use fetch from Nuxt there. I've seen it countless times. Also, when I'm around the Discord, so as a Nuxt team member, like answering people there in my, let's say, spare time, also like fully, like voluntarily, so to say. So there I also see a lot of patterns that I also find enterprise applications, especially people that are not super proficient in Vue and Nuxt and don't know much about composables. Like, okay, I build, let's say, a service architecture, use classes, and there's in general nothing wrong with that. But then they put composables in the classes, and then they instantiate the classes once somewhere else, and things blow up a little bit. So instead of saying, okay, we use our services in these composables, like use async data and then use a class in there, or like any kind of other object for a repository pattern, for example, which is apparently super common when you do like OOP, they do it the other way around, and that messes up with the context. And especially writing async composables is always tricky. Daniel Rowe has a very strong opinion actually on these. Says, hey, you better shouldn't write any kind of async, like with the keyword async composable. So whatever you have should always be, well, non-async by default. It can return a promise, or like it can return whatever use fetch returns and so on. But the asynchronity should only happen, like the async keyword and the wait keyword especially, that should be part of your component, because there Vue can handle all these, let's say, asynchronous gotchas and caveats. So yeah, I think that these are common problems, unfortunately, even though I think like nowadays the Vue docs do a really good job in explaining composables, but yeah, async stuff is still hard sometimes.
I found like the thing with async is that if you have an async function and you want to use it anywhere else, then that also has to become async. So you have like a composable that's async, let's say, then, oh, you want to use it in another composable or somewhere else, then, okay, now you have to rewrite that to be async, and then it can like trigger this like cascade, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I've got to handle like this loading state a little bit differently, and it can cause like a whole bunch of headaches. So I also like to just keep it synchronous if I can, and then go from there.
I think what you also can do, like, of course, in plain JavaScript or TypeScript, you have the same, let's say, quote unquote problem. If you have something that's async, you want to wait it, that function has to be async as well. And at some point, you have to do something with the promise, either just like ignore it, or let's say, I don't know, a run function for like a very simple like script that you're like, okay, everything is async, like having like an IIFE immediately invoked function expression to just like run that. In Vue components with composables, what you can do as well is if you wrap something that's async, I don't care about the promise. I basically make it reactive by saying, okay, this returns something. By default, it's null. When the promise is resolved, like with the then, change the ref and output the ref or the computed. So it's a bit more, let's say, asynchronity through actual like reactive primitives. So like through a ref that will change whenever it's executed.
Right.
I think an easy example there is Vue use async state, which is basically doing that. You put an URL and say what you want to request. The same with like use fetch or like an async function. And then the things will change. Same in Nuxt with use async data. There is a bit more around there. And then you can work around that. Or what you can also do, if you really need to work with that promise and want to give quite some things back, you can just say, okay, I don't await it. I just say const promise equals whatever, and then return the whole thing, which doesn't make it async straight away. You can decide to, well, ignore that or like to await it higher up.
Yeah, there are solutions. It's just
it's tricky sometimes.
It's tricky sometimes.
That's true.
So you mentioned you're on the Nuxt Core team. So I know we've seen on social media and stuff like that. Every once in a while, you have a meetup, you get together and you do Nuxt things, make some Nuxt cakes, and go bouldering and whatever else you guys do. But beyond that, the day-to-day or week-to-week kind of Nuxt Core team things, like what does that involve? You're on Discord helping people, but you could be on Discord helping people even if you're not on the Nuxt Core team, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I would encourage everyone who has the time to like help people, be it on like GitHub or like help us as well, like try issues, help people with your experience or expertise, just like with suggestions. We have a lovely community of people. And of course, not all people who help are in the core team or like the ecosystem team, so to say. I also think it is like, I would see it from the exact opposite. It's not like, of course, it's not like I help people because I'm on the core team. It's more or less like I am on the core team because I help people. It's like I contribute. And I joined in 2018. So in September 2018, it's also been a while. And in the end, I would always see it as some kind of, let's say, honorable mention or like title or like say recognition for what you've done for the community, the project, whatsoever. So in terms of responsibilities, there isn't something like, okay, you have to, I don't know, work on these issues or whatnot. So unlike a company, it's really more like, hey, you contribute to the project. You did it before, otherwise you wouldn't be on a team, and you can do it in your way. Of course, you're up to say, hey, I'm interested in that part. I want to pursue this issue or this pull request. I want to give this a try. Then collaborate with other people on that, or people will be like, hey, it's great. Let me know if there's anything to help you with. But you're not really forced to say, hey, I have to work, or like you have to work on a certain part. You have to be active in the Discord for X hours or try each issues. This is something, of course, I do to give back to the community, help, and also to, well, make the project grow more successful, more stable, and so on and so on.
Right. So it's not like a job where you applied and said, okay, I'm good at programming. I know how to do this stuff. And
no.
Can you let me in? And then they're like, yeah, sure, here you go. But it was the other way around. You sort of, it was more earned rather than, like it wasn't just handed to you. You're just doing
I didn't request it or
and
anything.
Eventually,
yeah. So
which is another interesting point, because like with open source, and I've heard a bunch of people say this too, of like, you can just start and contribute and there's no one gatekeeping or preventing you, and you can help in your own way.
You don't need any permission.
You want. And yeah, exactly.
So I also think like it's important that this has been seen this way. Like if you're like out there and someone's like, okay, my goal is to become a core team member. Well, what does it mean actually? Wouldn't it be better to say, hey, I want to, let's say, push that project forward. I want to make it more amazing. Like basically your goal should be the values that you're recognized for being a core team member, not the fact of being one. So for example, like I started using Nuxt in like late 2017, early 2018 or so. So it didn't took that long to get like to become part of the core team. But I also I started very simple with like, okay, PRs to the docs, improvements here and there, examples with like Tailwind back then, because well, that was a big thing, was a big Tailwind fan since before it was released. So it started there using it. And back then when Nuxt 2 wasn't there yet, even it was to like Nuxt 1 time, there was still like Nuxt Edge for a while. I checked out some modules. I built some own applications and realized that there are lots of things missing, not necessarily in the core, but like in the module ecosystem. So I built some modules. I contributed to a few things. And then I got in touch with Puya, for example, with Sebastian. They basically also got in touch with me. It's like, hey, great contributions. Let's chat on Slack back then. Then we moved to Discord. And it was really, like, for me, it was really random. In 2018, like August or so, Sebastian was saying, yeah, there is the conference. It's called vue.js London. Sadly, not there anymore. But back then it was, and it was pretty amazing. And it was like, yeah, wanna like go there? Let's meet up. We can like get you in everything. Just have to like book a flight and a hotel. And I was like, that's pretty sick. So I'd never been to like a big Vue conference before. I think like 1 or 2 programming conferences. Like the vibe is really amazing, as we probably also said multiple times here, and it really is. So I wanted to go there, of course, but also in September, I started an internship in Dublin, Ireland. So I moved from Germany for like half a year over to Ireland. And officially, I think the problem was like, I don't know, my second week or so. And I had to ask like my boss, hey, can I take a day off to go to the conference? And before I was like, I had no idea how that will be. But my boss back then was super cool. She was like, yeah, go for it. Do that. Amazing. So I did exactly that. And there I met Sebastian and Alex Chopin for the first time. And also, well, got in touch with a lot of people from the Vue community in general. And it was pretty amazing. Then when they had their talk, or like Sebastian mainly, it was like before, it was like, oh yeah, congrats, you're on the core team now and you're there on the slides. And I was like, whoa, what's happening here? So that's that's kind of how I got into that. After contributions to modules and also to the core, to quite some things, which I don't do that much anymore. Like my focus shifted a bit, but back then that was definitely the case.
Yeah, that's cool how it was just like, I guess, an organic way. Maybe that's the right word of saying it. It just sort of, it just made sense. Like you had contributed, you had done all this work, you had been helping out. And so it just made sense that you would be included as part of that, recognize that you were one of the people who are really helping making this project happen. So you covered a little bit just now about how you got into the Nuxt Core Team.
Mm-hmm.
You also, we've covered you do consulting. I'm sure many people are wondering how you actually got into consulting. And I suspect that there's a link between the helping with the Nuxt Core Team and the consulting. But before we get to that, I'd like to maybe go a bit further back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a lot further back. I don't know. We'll see. But how did you get into programming? Were you like 1-year-old, just like, at the computer typing away, or how did you discover programming and discover that you liked it?
Yeah, so I was told, I can't fully remember that, but when I was 3 years old, my grandpa...
so not far off.
No, not far off. So my grandpa was really into computers, like since they were on there. He worked like in a big, it's not like a computer center, but more like a calculation center, hard to translate. But like back then when they had like the cards with the punch cards, everything, and then got upgraded and so on. So he worked there. And yeah, he was always interested in computers. And yeah, when I was 3 years old, he also like put me in front of it. Apparently, I had a lot of fun. Of course, I had no idea what I'm doing because I was 3. But it seemed I really enjoyed it somehow. And then like when I was a little bit older, like I played some games on the computer. And it was a lot of fun. I seemed to be fine with using it. And when I was like a teenager, I wanted, of course, my own. Or like when I then went to high school, I was like, yeah, it would be nice. And before I also like did a bit of computer stuff with my mom, like surfing through the internet when it came up in Germany, where I grew up. Got my own email address after the husband of my cousin was like, yeah, just tell my mom, yeah, no, it's time. He should really get his own email address to like own stuff and log in. And that really, moved that forward. And at one point I was playing games, I was using stuff, but I was wondering, okay, but someone has to create these things and like how to do this, because it's fun to be a user of a thing, of course, but like I wanted to know, okay, how does it work behind the scenes and maybe can I do also like, I don't know, a little browser game or whatnot? Well, never did, and at least not on that scale, but there were quite some ambitious points there. So yeah, I started like looking into a few things, but I don't know, it was like when I was like 10, 11, but actually programming started with 13 years. This really like hit the dot where it's like, okay, I wanna give it a try and do new things, is when I discovered Minecraft. So yeah, that legendary game, I played it a lot, it was fun. And there was, of course, also a way to play multiplayer, but it was very boring. It was still I think when I tried it first time, it was in alpha and then like in beta and so on. So there wasn't crazy, like there weren't crazy things to do. You could play together, but that's it. And there were some multiplayer modifications. So like mods, you could install on your server to do better things, more capabilities. And back then there was a mod called Hey Zero mod. So like Hey and Zero, a bit like Puya's handle with Pi Zero, but Hey, and no underscores. And that was written like in C++. And the guy was like, hey, I can't maintain it anymore. I'm sorry. So I was that close to look into C++, but then it was gone. And there was a new mod came up. It was called Bukkit. So Bukkit. And that was built with Java, fully made in Java, like Minecraft itself as well. And they could do amazing things. So I was like, that's cool. Why not learning Java now? And indeed, I learned Java. It was interesting. I think I'm happy that I don't do Java every day now anymore. I'm glad with everyone who enjoys Java. For me, it was a lot of boilerplate, but it really helped me like figuring things out with like strong typing. And I think especially like when I started, I did a few things like, okay, you check out some tutorials, and with like back then time with Eclipse, with like that open source editor, and it looked very old as well. So yeah, I tried to like build some things and some like also things detached from Minecraft at first. But my goal was like to build a little like say plugin for the server modification. And I created new classes and this and that. And I remember like I was following some tutorials. I was looking at some source code, and I was like writing the constructor of a class and always try to assign some kind of instance. But like, okay, instance is like a field, like a public class variable. It's like, this.instance is this and that, what I pass. And back in time, like my 13-year-old me, I never understood what this was doing, but without it, it didn't work. So it's just like at some point I was like, wait, this is why I do it, because I need this to access here. So it took a little bit, especially because, well, before you see actual results in Java, except like console logs and stuff, and like get into, I have to integrate this like third-party thing to make this and somehow build this. It wasn't that easy, but it worked out. And eventually I created my very first plugin. It's I think still somewhere online, and it did something really stupid. So basically in the game, if there was like a thunder, a thunderstorm, and the lightning would hit, I think a pig, it would just transform into a different character. This was all the things it did. But it was something that hasn't been done before.
Okay.
It was totally pointless. I think like it put a little chat message out. But I was like, okay, it works. It's simple. It's nicely scoped. And that was the start of it. And then from there, I explored more and more and built more Minecraft stuff, actually. And even eventually landed up in... So there was like a big forum, a big website where people could upload their plugins so they can be downloaded. I maintained a few things here and there. A lot of them also open source. I also wrote my first open source issue on GitHub back then in time, which was really horrible because it was no reproduction, no clear error message, just like, hey, this doesn't work. I might link it in the show notes. It was like, I sometimes checked it out because like even the maintainer wrote something, or like in the second issue was like, yeah, thanks for this very helpful issue. This is like, yeah, what should we do now? It's always nice to remind it like, okay, I also started as a noob, had no idea what he's doing. And but eventually I made it up to the staff like when I was 16, I think, on that website. So basically what we did is we reviewed source code to make sure there's no like malicious stuff in there, no, I don't know, keylogger and whatnot, and approved the plugins on that side. This is all internet history because the forum doesn't fully exist. It was migrated, but yeah, that's what happened.
Wow, so you're doing open source like the whole time, basically.
More or less
before Nuxt. That's pretty cool.
It's really funny because I didn't really consider it as open source. I think my first actual touch with open source was not like, okay, the plugin code was more or less available there, but I didn't like pushed much on GitHub, or maybe I did here, but like not like consciously of like, hey, I'm the maintainer of this. More like, hey, I published a new version on that forum/dev page there, and people can use it, but people can like reverse engineer. It's like Java is easy to deobfuscate and decompile.
Mm-hmm.
I think like the sense of also like collaboration was really there, and also getting in touch with people that eventually landed on the Minecraft team was really cool. With like 16 was a fun thing besides school.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. I remember trying to, I poked around with the Minecraft plugin stuff a little bit. I never really like gave it a serious try, but it's interesting how many people end up in programming through video games.
Oh, absolutely.
Like myself, for the last long time, I've not been able to like play any video games. I don't know what it is. I like will play it for like a day and I'll be like, yeah, this is great. And then immediately lose interest. So I don't know what it is, but I used to play a lot more. And one of the first things was, can I build a video game? And so I started by trying to build a 3D world editor game where you could like set up the map and like add the objects to it and stuff like that, which was extremely ambitious for a 12-year-old who had no idea how to program. So
true that.
I didn't get anywhere with that. But even a lot of the people I went to university with got into programming through video games, and they were like, I like video games, and so I want to know how to build these things. And so, yeah, it's really interesting how that happens.
I think it's also because like, okay, you do something like, hey, this is so amazing. Maybe like, oh, I want to do my own version of that, like creativity, or just like, hey, I want to give that feeling to other people, or just like, okay, right. How does that work under the hood? Especially the whole modding community. A lot of people that are like modding games, they eventually end up in game studios or having their way of programming. Sometimes also like not related to a game at all. So I know someone who's responsible. Like, there was one guy out there. He is doing basically a loot filter for an ARPG game where you have tons of loot. It's like, oh, the good quality, what fits to you, whatsoever, and it's all customizable. And he wrote an own language for that, so he can build it up. It's like, it's crazy. And he's a solution architect in real life, like for a paid job. So a modder at night, or like running games and doing some IT stuff throughout the day. I think it's a huge enabler, and I know a lot of people like also caught interest because of that, or like, okay, I want to do like Unity and tutorials and this and that. And I mean, in the end, we also all learned it because it was very accessible. Like there are programming tutorials out there for free. There's so much knowledge on YouTube, especially if your start is like, okay, I'm a teenager or I'm a student. I have $0. I want to learn a language. You can easily do that. Like from free code camp over to YouTube, as I said before, definitely worth doing. The more specialized it gets, or the more like, I don't know, oh, I'm using this specific framework, I want to know more about that. You either spend a lot of time in your day job when you, of course, are in programming, or you say, okay, I don't know, buy a very specific course and go through that. That's always like, either have it in a very nice and compact form. It's like nicely structured, and there's the information, like maybe I can find it like a GitHub issue there and Stack Overflow there and this and that. So, or the source code itself. But it's always easier, of course, if someone with knowledge can explain it.
I think it's also interesting how like mods for Minecraft or for any other game seems like a more accessible way of getting started than just writing your own game, because like it's a lot to put together a whole game, but like you can add a little feature that does something very small with a mod. And same thing with open source, where you could fix a small little bug or add on a little feature, and you don't have to like build your own meta framework for Vue. You can just tweak it a little bit, add a little thing in there, and that,
or just even build a module. I think this is, in a way, that analogy works very well there too. So you don't have to build a meta framework, you can just build a module or a plugin or whatsoever that allows you to do the things you want. So this is, I think, also why, in a way, the Vue community is very accessible. Like you also don't have to bother about, I don't know, library and publishing and this and that necessarily. Like, okay, you take the module builder for example, Nuxt, you get started. There are a lot of things set up already, and you can do what you want. Ideally, it's already your own project that you did before. You have to generalize it. So that always was very appealing. But yeah, like I remember, okay, I was 16, was in there. Then some people from the Bucket team got hired, and the whole thing fell apart a little bit, because there was also, okay, there was Mojang, the company who is behind Minecraft before they sold it to Microsoft, right? And then they hired the people from the Bucket team. There was like a little drama. And then I also think I got into a lot of other things. For example, at one point people were like writing me messages saying, "Hey, we need some custom stuff. Can you build this for us?" And I was like, "No, I don't have the time." And then people were like, "Well, we can pay you." And this in a way started to like get a little bit of, well, side money, so to say, well, pocket money when I was still younger. So I built custom plugins for some bigger Minecraft servers who then, like, I don't know, sold premium stuff and also got the money himself. So yeah, that was a very interesting time. And it even wasn't some kind of, it was not a hacker forum. It was like a general like developer, game enthusiast forum and so on. So I was also quite active there and also did some like little programming tasks here and there. It was interesting. But at some point I was like, okay, I want to build an own website, obviously, so I can, I don't know, offer my services, make a little customer portal so people can send requests. I can say, hey, this is how much it is. They can, I don't know, confirm that, send the money, and then I can get started. Of course, there are solutions for that already, but hey, a lot of time as a teenager, let's just build it yourself. And it's also good learning. And that's where I got into PHP. So,
PHP.
yeah. It was a lot of fun. At first, I was like, oh, yeah, let's do a bit with like content management systems like Joomla, WordPress, and so on, and then play in PHP. And from there, I quickly got into things like CodeIgniter, was also mentioned a couple episodes before as well, and eventually Laravel. And I think that was roughly the time where also I founded my own company, like after A levels, roughly. I mean, I founded my company for sure after A levels, but then like I also got in these frameworks because then it was okay, an own company. We do websites for SMEs, for small medium enterprises, very basic stuff. So content management system, but at some point it was like, okay, more complex things where you have to get into advanced and proper frameworks for like custom solutions.
So how old were you when you started this company?
18. Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Yeah, because
almost 10 years ago. Yeah.
and so this company, was it, you kind of transitioned from, okay, so you were getting paid to do some stuff for like Minecraft community
Yeah.
and things like that, to, were you building websites for people at this point, or was it like some Minecraft stuff? Was it like, did you like slowly transition, or was it like a hard flip?
It was more of a hard flip because the Minecraft stuff at some point when the drama intensified more, and then also like A levels, I didn't really have time for that anymore. Like, at least not much. There were maybe like a few requests from people I knew, but yeah, nothing big anymore. And yeah, with my PHP knowledge and look into all like the content management systems, I built up I think, quite reasonable page back then with like plain PHP. And I was like, okay, great. We learned it in school. I knew that, but before already, that worked all pretty well. I had like bigger things built up there. I know something like, okay, I can generate like a one-time link for something to download so people can't download more often. But like, yeah, funded a company, it was a crazy coincidence. So after A levels, I was like, I did my A levels in the more rural area of Germany. And we were like sitting at a friend's place for like some kind of, let's say, village festival. And like the family, the mom came in, we're like a couple teenagers. He was like, hey, yeah, folks, can anyone here create a website by any chance? And I was like, yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, amazing, perfect, because my company's website is looking so ugly. She wasn't wrong. I mean, it was like optimized for IE5 or something. And that was like 2015. So really 10 years ago. I was like, oh yeah, and it's like €1,000 enough. I was like, that's I mean, I don't know, 18 euros, like €1,000, it's a shitload of money. I was like, yeah, crazy, insane. I mean, it also is a substantial amount of money, but of course, for a website, well, anyway, I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's see. And it's like, do you have a company because of like invoicing and Germany? And I was like, yeah, no, because, well, I don't. And and then she was like, yeah, no worries. My husband is a tax advisor. He can help you setting that up. So that was a crazy coincidence. And like I'm still, of course, in touch with the family. They're amazing people. And then I started basically that company together with two friends. One of my friends back then who I knew from school, went to school with, same grade and everything. And we did A levels together. And another friend I knew through my best friend back, like, I know, from primary school, and then a friend there who was also like into web development and did some websites before. So the three of us started that company. So basically, two of us, me, the guy I knew from my best friend, basically knew a lot about web. And the third person was a lot into like Mac OS, iOS applications. So we could like cover a few things.
Okay.
And that's how it started. Yeah, we did that website. We did a few more, but at some point, I don't know. I've said it a few times already, be it in like videos or in socials, or I think also here. I'm not a good designer, so I could see like, it's not ideal, but I wasn't never really good at that. And also, one of our friends, after like a year or so, left the company. Was like, okay, it's too much stress, responsibility, and so on, so on. So we're like, understandable, especially when we started studying. That was like around the time after A levels, studying computer science. Also, the three of us, same city. It's like, okay, look, this is a bit too much. And I also understand that if, like, I don't know, a customer says, hey, we have an urgent request and you're on vacation, like, that's tricky. Or especially if you're not reachable because, you're doing some vacation with like, I don't know, a phone where no receptionist whatsoever. Yeah, that's a bit difficult.
Yeah, and dealing with all that stuff, like, it's a lot of responsibility when you're younger, and it's also if you're trying to study at university and you're already like maybe struggling to keep up with university and be disciplined there, then it's like it's a lot of stuff to juggle. Like, I definitely found that I had to cut back on some of my other stuff when I went to university.
Yeah, I agree. Like, juggling it all isn't easy, but on the other hand, I think it is an amazing time to do that because realistically, and I've, like, the three of us were in that fortunate position that, like, you can allow mistakes there. You can allow to, like, I don't know, mess it up with a client because you don't know better, and then you know, like,
Right.
it doesn't, let's say, it isn't as costly as like now. If I would lose a client because, I don't know, I messed something up like greatly, this is like big, not only legal consequences, of course, also money wise, reputation.
Right.
So of course it always hurts if you do something wrong. But back then you have more of that. I can try things out, while now the responsibility is even bigger.
Maybe like it's a little bit of a side question, but in Germany there, do you have to pay for university, or is that like included, or like how does that work?
Yeah. So
Because if you were, I mean, for some people, if you have to pay, you have to work to pay to go through university, then that's like yet another
that's another thing.
thing.
Yeah. So you don't have to pay tuition fees like the classic wise. You have like a semester fee, which is negligible in terms of like it's 200 something euros, and this is included with public transport ticket for the city you're in. That also varies by
Okay.
city. But like if you don't go to like a private university and it's your first time studying, then that's the fee roughly you have to pay every half a year. But of
Right.
course, if you say, okay, you also need to live somewhere and need some food and stuff.
Right.
So what was quite common was then people basically said, okay, they do working student jobs also, especially in programming or like studying computer science. There were a lot of people say, hey, we pay you money, you can learn programming, do some stuff for us. So also bigger companies basically getting some, let's say, fresh blood, some people who might stay there. So that was a common way. But yeah, for us, it was basically exactly this, but we have our own company, which also means, and that's still one of the biggest benefits, I think. If you really put into like energy and effort and passion and things work out, then you also reap the rewards straight away. And it's not like, oh, it doesn't really, it's wrong to say it doesn't matter. But if I give 150% or 90%, or like the impact in terms of your salary, you might get a bonus at the end of the year, but it doesn't show as if like, okay, I push through that faster and it's a project, so I have a fixed price. If I do it faster, I have a better outcome in the end, or more free time or whatsoever. So that was always very motivating and still is.
And you probably have like, there are pros and cons. Like, you learn in some ways, I'm sure you learn a lot more because you're doing everything yourself and you feel the pain of things. But then you also don't have like mentors to tell you about stuff unless you're getting mentored or indirectly through open source, because you can like read the code and people are reviewing your code and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely a good option. And like you had said before, there's less risk in a way when you're younger and you don't have a lot to lose. And you can basically just say, what did you expect? I'm like basically just a kid still, and
Yeah, also like no
you don't have,
family, like you have like
yeah,
still a lifestyle
exactly.
that's manageable money wise. So it's like
Yeah.
responsibility. It's okay. You can I don't know, you can do like all-nighters more often. I don't know. If I do a few more all-nighters, I already feel old. Or it's also like, hey, I have to get up in the morning. I can't sleep until, I don't know, 11 and
Yeah.
then go to uni. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah,
terms of
exactly.
mentoring, I really like what you said. And I actually also mentioned that a few times. Like I never had formally a mentor or someone was like, okay, this is someone, I don't know, a senior engineer company I looked like up to. It was like, okay, that guy, I can see a lot. It was all open source and people from open source. And the internships I did, I was especially in the one in Dublin, I was like the only web developer there. It was mainly and
Yeah.
this is a fun part, machine learning and an AI company, which is now part of
Ooh.
AMD. So, but also like people went there from NVIDIA and so on, and like very like research focused, really smart people. But of course, web development far away. But they were looking for someone saying, "Hey, we need someone to do some web development there." So I did.
And so you were in university,
Yeah,
you studied computer science.
correct.
What kind of courses or things that you learned that stood out to you that you remember? I mean, because there's a lot of stuff that you might have forgotten in the time
Yeah,
since. But what things stood out to you? And maybe a third part to this question. This is a long question now.
that's fine.
Um, is there stuff that you've taken that applies to web development? Because I think that's the one thing that people kind of say, well, I did computer science, but like, why does it help me when I'm writing CSS?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I also think it's the beauty of our job or even our industry that you do not need a degree at all. Like, okay, the two of us have a degree, still waiting for it formally, but I did everything I need. Or actually sent an email before the podcast. I'm like, hey, I have anyway bureaucracies in Germany. But I did it, and you did it as well. But we don't need it. Like we can easily say, okay, we can learn that on our own free time. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to program before I went to university, and also there were programming courses organized by other students, and they got a little credit for that, which was nice. But also in the lectures, everyone was saying, look, also in the courses, like we can't teach you programming. We can tell you theoretical things, we can give you exercises, but you have to do it. You have to experience it. And I agree. Like go out there and do projects. Try, fail, ideally have someone or like a community to help with and like progress with that. It's always, I think it's always like that. It's you try things, it might not work out as well. You try other things, it might work better, and you get used to a language, a framework, a problem as well. So I think this is a big takeaway, especially in the beginning. I know we learned C, we learned Haskell as well. We had to do Java, but that was, well, given that I had a little bit of knowledge before, not that hard. But for example, Haskell with like functional programming and a total different mindset that really blew me away. Of like, okay, I know programming, I thought, and then you have Haskell, like, whoa, what's going on there? But I really like the concepts of
Yeah.
like it's so different, but it's also very elegant and it can solve so many problems. And also, like, I was never a big fan of OOP itself, especially on the backend with PHP. It was fine, but I never like. I often didn't understand why we need that much boilerplate for everything. And JavaScript with just objects and functions was way nicer there, especially if you say, hey, I have a function and then calls a function and like you have a bit of composables, so to say, a composable function. That was great. But yeah, like in general, the course I took was compared to what you did. I think it was also a mixture of both. We had some practical parts. We even had a course called Software as a Business that it was not a required one, but we can choose that, where basically, and that was really fun. You got like teams of 5 or 6 people, and the idea was basically to found your own startup, like hypothetically, in that semester. So you start with, okay, is there
Okay.
any idea? There were some people pitching in ideas like that wanted to like work on a version with some students. So sometimes like acquaintances of the professor or like people from other companies. There were people like from a startup incubator in the city where I studied that came, and we like, okay, how to do like a market research, how to do a SWOT analysis, so like all the things around that, which I think helped also a lot in terms of, okay, what are their tools? Like, okay, personas, understanding like the possible target group more, and so on, so on. It was a lot of fun. We built a smart dumbbell in the end. I can't remember what the
Okay.
name was. Something. I think it was something with smart. But yeah, I might also. We even built a site I built back then already with Nuxt and put it on Netlify. And we had a sensor that was a big thing back then, like IoT. It's like, okay, we have a dumbbell that can count how many reps you do, so you don't have to put it in and all that. And then, like, yeah, we thought about something. In the end, we had it presented. There were people like a bit like Dragon's Den or like Shark Tank, I think it's called, where like, okay, people are there judging your presentation skills and like also learn how to give a good like a pitch. And that was really nice and helped us a lot from an entrepreneurial like point of view. Yeah, so that was pretty good. But of course, we had like calculus, we had algebra, like the whole math part in the first 3 semesters was really there to separate the people who are, well, okay, I study computer science because I don't know and like computer games. It doesn't work, which doesn't mean everybody who's liking computer games is not made for computer science. But yeah, so that was interesting, even though I don't have to use it every day in like, groups and Galois field and whatnot, like, or like what a monoid is, or like a half group or ring. You don't use it day by day, but I think sometimes the understanding that's like subconsciously still there, like how to solve certain problems and look into it. Same with like algorithms and data structure of like, okay, I never had a job interview. People said, can you revert a binary tree or like I don't know, build a double linked list or whatnot whatsoever. But the approaches there, also like big O notation, super useful to understand performance parts, arrays versus objects and all that. So there are a few things that I could take away. Would I need the whole study for that? Probably not necessarily. We even had like internet and web applications as a topic of choice. It was a bit more old fashioned, like we learned still XML. It was interesting and like how to validate XML and all that. But yeah, no like framework itself. But there were luckily projects also my university that like used frameworks like Angular, not AngularJS, very important Angular. And also when they knew like, hey, you're in the Nuxt team, it's like, yeah, we can do stuff with Nuxt. And they did stuff with Nuxt. Like, did also I did chair my final thesis where I compared Next, Angular, and Nuxt in terms of SSR performance, and hope to publish a few things of that this year. So yeah, is it like worth studying if you say I just want to do web development? It depends. Like I think it was still an amazing time, especially that I had the time to just try things out, and that freedom and also the free time was really worth it. But you don't necessarily need it. That's fair to be said.
Your point about like the concepts that like big O notation and like some of these other things where you don't necessarily use it. You're not like, calculating specifically these things or writing data structures and things, but kind of having those concepts like in your head somewhere, whether or not you realize that you're using it probably helps you in some ways where you're thinking through a problem. Oh, I can approach it this way versus this way. I wonder if that is maybe a more useful part. Like I've heard of this concept called overlearning, where basically like if you want to get really good at algebra, you can learn calculus. And calculus uses algebra, but then the goal is not necessarily to be good at calculus, but like by learning the thing like beyond it, then you have to like really, you get really good at like that foundational stuff. And so I wonder if that's kind of like a similar thing where, well, okay, so maybe the point is not as much that you're going to be able to write your own doubly linked list, but by having written one and then having written, all sorts of like different queues and all sorts of other stuff like that, you kind of have like these ideas just like internalized much more deeply than if you had just like read a Wikipedia article on big O notation and thought, oh yeah, that's cool, I kind of get it, and then moved on.
That's for sure true. I think especially things that really build up on each other, that makes a lot of sense. I think if you would apply it, for example, to Vue and say, hey, I want to get good at Vue, I want to see how people like build Vue basically and look into that. It might not be as helpful. You maybe understand reactivity amazingly then, but it doesn't make you better at building websites. But I think also this is like the comparison, the analogy is not correct, but in general, I also agree, like learning C, for example, dealing with pointers or like that there is no string type is all chars. Yeah, cool. This was like an amazing experience to see what is actually going on under the hood, how to like deal with memory manually. Do I want to do it every day? Certainly not, but it was a great experience. And same with, we had even like how was it called? Like computer architecture, more or less, with like, you could even choose to like do like compiler stuff and build your own compiler and Lichter and parser and whatnot. But even like the base level, which we all had to take, besides the whole like electric part with like, oh yeah, circuits and whatnot and flipboards. Like computer architecture with, okay, Boolean logic, De Morgan's law, still using that every now and then, which is quite helpful.
I remember that one.
So there are a lot of things that kind of stuck with you and that really help to understand, even though you say, like, I will never need this knowledge as a web developer directly. But yeah, the foundations are still helpful.
Yeah, and I also want to state again that like there's often this debate about like, do you need a CS degree or not? And I knew people in my CS program who like at the end, the final year, we like do the big programming project, and there were people who could not program who have a CS degree. And also I've worked with people who did not have a CS degree and they were exceptional programmers.
Yeah.
And so it's just a different set of knowledge. It's like a different way of getting to the same place. So if you're listening thinking, oh man, I feel like I need to go back to university, don't worry about it.
I mean, except
you still can if you want to.
If you want to do like a PhD and like want to become a professor, that's also fine. Like I think also, especially in academics, it would be great to have some more like new knowledge there. But it was funny. I was talking with one of my supervisors, not of my final thesis, of another project I had, and it's like, yeah, and I was like, okay, on company is that. It's like, yeah, that's the problem in academics. Like people, especially like really skilled people, they just go into the like private economics and they become JavaScript developers because, well, the pay is nice. Like you don't have to like deal with a lot of bureaucracy as well. So that was also an interesting perspective on that. But also from another side, especially in Germany, if you apply to more traditional companies, they are happy to see that you have some kind of degree in there. But realistically, the people where you want to work for, they rather see your references than your degree. It might give you a nice salary bump if you have a degree, but your references are key. And Michael, as you said before, I also know people who finished the CS degree, like at least a bachelor or like a master, and they still couldn't really program. So that's a bit tricky then if you actually want to work like as a programmer. While I know a lot of people, they stopped the bachelor, they didn't have the best grades, and me neither, at least in like the bachelor phase, so to say. But they were really good at what they're doing. So, and had references. They built some things on the side, and especially people that were actually programming on the side during university, no matter if it was like a working student or like in their own side projects, they landed at really, really nice jobs.
Yeah, you mentioned before your professors were saying they can't teach you how to code because it's all like theoretical stuff, and they give you projects, and then, I had one project where I was going to write a compiler. I think it was something like that. It didn't work in the end, and so I got like, I don't know, part marks for it. Didn't do the best, but like I learned, I guess, through trial and error, and so you kind of have to take that on yourself. And if you do that through university, or you just decide during your day job to like learn programming on the side, it's kind of the same thing. Working like on projects directly maybe is a more direct route because you actually gain experience in actually writing stuff, and you can build projects and see what works, what doesn't. Whereas with university, you're often building all sorts of random things, and so.
I think if you do that project building on the side of university, as had like been through like a side job or your own company, or even just like a fun project like some student organization. We also had a very good student organization to have to mention that. Like that was a student assembly, was really good. That helped also a lot of people, and I think that's really key. Plus, find friends, find like-minded people, because I like still some of my best friends nowadays I met through university, and I'm happy that even though I live in Anneslau, we still stay in touch and everything, see each other regularly. So yeah, make friends, don't be lonely, especially after COVID. It's really worth it.
So moving on from university to now, what?
Yeah, right.
What? So that's the last piece that we have. So
there's something missing in between.
So there's university, and then you ended up eventually, like now you're doing consulting where you're not building websites for people, but you're more lending your expertise. So Can you fill in that time gap for us?
Yeah. So as I said, I looked into Laravel, where I think kind of like actually like mindfully or like openly got in touch with open source. Even did some contributions to the Laravel docs, and I think even wanted the framework, but it doesn't matter too much. Like some smaller things, nothing too big. I started maintaining one single package, and I knew PHP. I had to build a more complex application. It was an association manager, which I eventually rebuilt in Nuxt with Nuxt Hub in a video series nowadays. So that was 2015 was like, okay, great, or like 2016, something like that. We built it. It was like Bootstrap, of course, back then, and Laravel only, a bit of jQuery. It worked. It was horrible in terms of I can't do anything with the code anymore, of course. So it's like, okay, let's rebuild. But back then I was like, okay, Laravel, super powerful PHP framework, great, has like auth included a lot of things. And then I was like, yeah, but I heard JavaScript, like jQuery, it's not a thing. I also built a website for a game where basically, let's say it was for like a hero shooter, and you have different matchups, like so different, let's say, heroes you can pick. And the idea was to have a website say, hey, hero A is good against B, but weak against the other one. And people could like vote. So like crowdsource information, even write like tips and comments and vote on these. I built that, and that somehow blew up because like a bigger YouTuber, like I don't know, 50K subs or so, was like sharing that. I built it with Laravel and also jQuery. It was a lot of fun. Website is still online, not really maintained anymore. Game is also kind of dying, sadly. And it was a lot of fun to build. It was a nice side project, put some ads on. So it was also like not substantial revenue, but still. And I learned a lot through that as well. The best part is when the YouTuber was posting the page after, I don't know, an hour, and it was 4 a.m. in the morning because he was American. I woke up at 6 and the site was crashing everywhere because someone did something I didn't consider. Someone's like, hey, champion A is good or bad against itself. And that didn't work in my table schema and everything. Yep. So that broke. I fixed it. It was all good. It's still like had enough traffic. But I was like, oh my God. Once again, people come up with fun ideas you never expect. So it's always good to, well, have error tracking on there, which I luckily had then as well. But I did a lot of like fun side projects, especially there I was like, hey, there's so much you can do and modals and this and that. I need to look more into JavaScript. jQuery is like it helped when it was necessary. But yeah, this was like after like 2016, 2017, something like that. I think like 16-ish. And then I took a look. And of course, as also mentioned before countless times, Taylor Otwell was a big fan and still is a big fan of Vue.js, tweeted about that. The Laravel universe is very much into Vue.js. So I was like, let's take a look at this Vue thingy. I took a look. I built another project, which was a very simple landing page for an older customer. Like, okay, yeah, sure. Built that in Vue only. It was great. It was lovely. Great experience. A lot of fun. Not really complicated. But wait, you need this thing called SEO. Plain Vue and SEO is tricky. So I found this project called Nuxt. And that's kind of where I started using it. So that part we covered. Now, from doing that, going like to my internship, so I didn't have like a lot of clients that's like, hey, look, I'm out for half a year. If you need anything urgent, we can maybe figure something out. But full-time job, internship, that's it. It was also mandatory. That's why I did it, because going abroad was fun from part of my course. So they said like it's mandatory working or abroad semester or both. So I felt like it's a great chance. Yeah, go to Ireland. Been there before in like 10th grade or so. It was really nice. So like, let's go back there. And luckily through someone I know from university, it's like, oh yeah, I have a connection there. Maybe they said they need a web developer, hit them up and send them CV and so on. And yeah, then I was in touch there, and very often I was still on the Nuxt Discord. I was like doing my stuff, and in the evenings I was like helping people. And then someone, of course, was writing me, hey, yeah, did the same with the Minecraft thing. Like, hey, can you, I don't know, look into my project? It's like, no, I don't look into big projects in my free time. I don't have time for that. Oh yeah, we needed a solution we can pay you. And I was like, oh, wait. And that was like one guy was even, I think, from Ireland. We're like chatting a little bit. It's like, yeah, like I really want to like donate for like your work in the community. And I was like, yeah, okay, I don't have a donation page. Like, yeah, you just make like he grabbed me a coffee.com. It's like, no, I built it myself with Stripe. I open sourced that as well and everything. And that was like, okay, consulting, this, that. And it's like, okay, more and more people asking for that. And it's not only about donations. Maybe this is a viable, way of doing that. So I started and I wrote about it, put it in my blog posts, which I also wrote around 2018. wrote quite some blog posts, and I got into consultancy, and a lot of people hit me up, even like bigger companies, like European, also world known companies, from like, I don't know, fashion retailers over to a lot of actually e-commerce, obviously, but also beyond that. And it is pretty amazing that like these people are like, hey, want to have you an expert on that team? We're building a web shop, this, that. So yeah, that's how I basically pivoted a bit around. Also, so we're only the two of us at the company, right? And my other friend was left over, did iOS and macOS, found a very nice project in the meantime where it's like, hey, the company is amazing. I might want to stay there because he likes the project a lot and still is by today, still works at that company. So that was also, let's say, not dissolving, but it was like the focus was more clear. Before was a bit like, yeah, let's see whatever comes, might look into that or not. Either combine workforces or like separate projects. And then it was only me and focusing on consultancy, and that worked pretty well.
Nice. So yeah, now we've covered, I think, from the very beginning to the current time, and yeah, it's great. It was great to hear all the different things and all the stuff you did.
100%. It's always like a nice blast from the past. And I mean, we didn't cover quite some side projects, which is also not important. I think one more thing, that like the whole content creation, where like that.
Oh yeah.
That probably like people might know it started like in 2023 in like late September. I wanted to do it for way longer, but I always wanted to say, okay, if I do like content as in videos, because I did blog posts before, and then I don't know, still have to do my 2024 recap. It's still in progress, but I want to release it this month, and I will. It's long though. Yeah, I don't know. I want to do it consistently, so I need to have a setup, like something like that. I want to do it consistently so I can like really focus my time on that. And at some point I was like, okay, I moved to Amsterdam. Well, before that, so it was like also a bit of hassle here and there, and this and that. And eventually I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's redo my website. It was more than due. It was like looking so old, obviously. I couldn't even use it anymore because the server where my Laravel application was, where basically all the blog posts were pre-rendered eventually, I somehow, canceled that, and the data, it was gone.
Oh, no.
So the blog posts were all there on the site, so I could like copy them and everything, but I couldn't change anything anymore. Happens. And also, like, don't need Laravel backend for that. You can just straight away do something like Nuxt content, how it's now. So yeah, it was like, let's change this, let's do this. And YouTube streaming blog posts. Well, YouTube kind of got stuck. Kind of stuck with me. Blog posts right now, I feel always like writing a blog post, I could rather do a video about it if it's like worth the topic, because that's that fits more. And stream if I can, like videos you can pre-produce, like the podcast as well. It's not live. With streams, always tricky because you have to do it live, and I also want to do it consistently. Trying a bit more this year, but yeah. And in a way, I remember when I started, I was looking for a lot of content, and especially in Nuxt, it was rather thin. But I basically want to deliver the content that I wish that I would have had like at the start. I want to have that kind of content for people starting new into ecosystem. And then also going beyond beginner content, like more intermediate and advanced stuff, because that's what a lot of people are looking for. The problem, of course, is the typical like pyramid. You have a lot of beginners. You have not many intermediate and advanced people. So less people watching, also harder to monetize and so on and so on. But that's fine. I basically do that also for the community.
Yeah, I found that as well. It's like this trade-off where there's lots and lots of stuff already out there for beginners, but there's this pull that most of the people out there are beginners. And so it's hard to not get sucked into just catering towards that. But then if you do that, then, I remember as myself, like trying to learn stuff beyond this like beginner stuff, there's not a lot out there. And so then that's what I've been trying to do, is try and do a bit more advanced stuff. But then, of course, there are a few people who are willing to take that. So it's harder to justify spending that time and making courses for that and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a tricky thing.
With courses might be a bit different story. Where if you say like, hey, I have advanced knowledge, I charge a premium for that. And then people can get that. The problem is like, of course, I'm also planning to actively making a course on Nitro, but it was already revealed in a 2025 stream with Daniel. So jump back to that if you missed that. I really want to make sure that I still share a lot of knowledge that's just available to everyone. I don't want to like gatekeep or like have a paywall up for that. It's more like, as I said before in a bit, if you want to have like information, you can get them all theoretically through the source code and GitHub, whatever. But if you want to have like hands-on examples and so on, all like with nice structure outline, then that's the way to go, especially in a very niche topic, because then you have like a very like high expertise and people in it are happy to pay. But on the other hand, I think especially for like intermediate content, it's still a good level of like, hey, we can talk about that. We can make videos or blog posts about that, and they're still like looked for and clicked. And with that, I'm also really happy how this is going. I'm also looking forward to do some more like TypeScript or JavaScript or like more general stuff, because right now it's more like Vue and Nuxt, and I will stay in the Vue Nuxt bubble or ecosystem, of course. But it's nice like looking outside of that, like having a few touches here and there is something that's still relevant for people. That's also a challenge.
Yeah, I'm trying to branch out a little bit more as well. I'm choosing a different route, though. I'm going more in the AI route.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that I'm like trying to learn, how do I use AI? And a lot of stuff is like in Python, or if it isn't TypeScript, it's like with React or Next. And so, yeah, there are differences a little bit in terms of using it with Vue and Nuxt. I mean, like you said, it's creating the stuff that I wish that I could have watched
exactly
6 months ago, because that's how fast things are moving.
Yeah, so there's like a couple weeks. It's crazy.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah. So.
But I think it's also really nice, and then it will help a lot. Like I'm always telling people like, hey, I know I've seen a Discord recently. Someone was like, oh, I created my own wrapper around the hydration error messages that Vue gives, so I have actual error tracking. And I was like, that's great. Do you have a blog post on it? Otherwise, can you write one? Because there is like so much knowledge in the people's head also for companies. Like, okay, this is no business secret necessarily. Put it up there, and nobody expects you to write a whole module or library. It's just like, hey, this is how we did it. Here's a code snippet. You can do the same, you can do differently, but at least here's one way of solving a particular problem. And I really think this is so valuable. Like, once again, people should like write more about it, talk more about it at meetups or whatnot. Yeah, it would be great to see that.
Yeah, I agree. More content. The more content, the better.
Absolutely.
So last week you did this rapid fire thing at the end with me.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple questions for you.
Let's go.
Some harder than others, but I'll try and be easy on you. So how did you end up in Amsterdam?
Because of my girlfriend. I can work from everywhere. She had a permanent contract here, and yeah, I'm here.
Good enough reason. That's also why I'm where I am. So
True.
I can relate. Okay, so if you weren't able to program, what would you do for a living?
That's difficult. My mom always said like, yeah, it might be like a media lawyer, maybe like a politician, but for the good ones, not for the bad ones.
Okay.
So yeah, you could even talk with my girlfriend about it recently. Like, could even imagine like an actor, but I never felt like I wanted to be an actor. But yeah, it could be fun, or like some, I don't know, late night host or something. So what we do, but without programming, something like that.
Host a different podcast.
Yeah, like teaching something different. I don't know, something like that. I think yeah, it could be fun, but something I want to be passionate about.
Yeah, for sure. So you used to be very much into Minecraft. Do you still play Minecraft today? Or are there other video games that you're like really into?
Yeah, I don't play Minecraft anymore. Unfortunately, so to say. But I still am a big gamer. I still play a lot of video games, different ones. I play Perfect Heist 2, which is like a little player versus player, like heist simulator. It's a lot of fun with friends regularly. Like we play every Monday, like evening. But yeah, other games as well. I try to stay up to date there. It's a fun world.
I have not heard of those ones, but also I don't really pay attention to video games, so
my Steam library is too long. I don't know. Like I play Hogwarts Legacy, for example. Also finished the game recently fully. It was a lot of fun. We played GTA for a while. I mean, these are more well known. Yeah.
So this is one that I think is kind of interesting. I'll give you a little bit more time to think about it as well. So if you had to give a talk, like right now, an impromptu 20-minute presentation on any subject, but it can't be programming related.
Damn it.
So is there like some sort of thing that you're like passionate about? I feel like most people have like at least a couple areas where they like know a lot of information, and you could give like a 15-minute monologue of interesting tidbits.
Yeah, I think like gaming would be definitely one of them. Probably like not super in that, but I also like to play chess. I didn't play for a while though, but I'm trying to get back into that. Otherwise, German politics.
Okay.
That's also something. When I was still living there, I was super invested. Now I'm still invested. So this is probably also something to talk about. Maybe also like European politics. Sometimes even world to some degree. Yeah,
Okay.
I could talk about it for hours, or like debates.
Yeah. Okay. I did not know that.
That's up for the next DejaVue podcast episode.
Yeah. German politics.
Yeah. Other than that, actually, there's one more thing. It's a nice anecdote, but not that much anymore. German rap and hip hop. I was really, really into that. Now, not that much. Like, don't listen to it that much anymore. But I remember when I was at vue.js in Texas in 2020, so right before COVID hit, I was sitting with Evan and we talked about like Chinese rap and German rap. I actually did some German rap in the past. So I was like showing some deeply buried in the internet, just some examples. Yeah, were crazy times.
Yeah, and Evan doing some karaoke is I don't know if he's done that recently, but that used to be a thing at least.
He's still rocking it for sure.
Some Vue lore.
In Japan, I have some videos where like sang together in Japan. It was a lot of fun. And hope to do that very soon again at vue.js Amsterdam, which is coming up in March, by the way. Little segue, 10% discount going in the show notes. Yep.
Yeah, well, a good segue to wrap things up. I don't know. Can you consider it a segue if we're wrapping things up? I don't know.
I think that's more than fine.
It was great to chat with you, learn more about you, and of course, there are plenty of episodes that we've got before this one. You can go check them out.
Exactly.
Our predictions for 2025 for Vue and Nuxt and all of that. And many more.
Like episode about Michael, as we said before, wherever he is on the screen here. Yes. So definitely, check them out. Also with Daniel, with Evan, with Matt Poker, with a lot of amazing people out there. The list is long and we should really get them all on the website so can people actually search and filter for them. That's a resolution for 2025. We should build that. Maybe like on stream or something. Let's see.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and if that's not the latest episode, then you know what to do. Just continue listening to it. Thank you, Michael, for all these amazing questions. And I hope now everybody knows my darkest secrets.
No, that's the next episode.
Oh, that's real. All right. The 5 sins of our Vue developers. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.